Balake. Where is Balake at?
My name's Blake.
Do you want to go to war, Balake? I'm for real. Ron.
Ron is right here, everyone. Welcome back for more SPTV, where every day's a great day not to be in a cult. And for those of us who are no longer in a cult, we are in a separate space than the cult space. We're in the ex-cult space, and the ex-cult spaces can be just as nasty and filled with abusive elements as cult spaces. By the way, the people in the thumbnail have nothing to do with what I'm going to discuss in this video, other than the fact that I asked Grok for some famous examples of narcissists, and it gave me a list of people that are, at least on the internet, widely considered narcissists. And I just used some of the ones that I didn't think would get me demonetized in a thumbnail. So, no offense to the Meghan Markle fans or the Kim Kardashian fans or the Kanye West fans, but it is what it is. So in the ex-cult spaces, one of the biggest examples of weaponized language is just accusing someone of being a narcissist. Narcissism, you see it everywhere. Oh, it's just the easiest way to just relegate someone as just an abusive element. Narcissism, you see it everywhere. It's kind of like in politics, I guess. It's the equivalent of in politics. When all else fails, just call someone a racist. And so I want to thank the friend who sent me a link to a following video about narcissism. And it seems to so accurately describe what I personally have been observing in my ex-cult space, which is the ex-Scientology space. And this video, I'm going to share it with you. It's from Instagram. I've got it ready for the screen share. This video seems to so perfectly describe what is going on in some of the most prominent examples where, well, it's funny because I guess there's two things happening at the same time. There's what a narcissist is doing when they're relentlessly going after you and trying to tear you down. And then there's also, combined with that, the mechanism of projection. And it seems to me that in the biggest example I'm thinking of, these two things have merged, where you, in my opinion, have legitimate, honest to God narcissism. And then that person uses projection to try to use that weaponized language against others. So I think when you guys watch this video, you'll see a little bit of what I'm talking about. So let's take a look at this. I think I've got my screen share set up properly. And here we go.
That they've relegated you to.
Wait.
And it's really important for you to understand that, because as long as you...
Okay, real quick. I'm worried that it's about 10 seconds ahead of where I want it to be. So let me try this again real quick. Hold on. Boom. Okay. That's what I want. That's what I want. What I really, really want. Sorry, guys. This user interface is a little frustrating. Okay. Here we go. Whenever I reload the page, the default is to have the sound off. So I've got to do it again. God, thought I had it all perfectly set up. Okay, sound on. Let's give it another shot here, folks.
The critical thing to understand about a narcissist is that they've created a character of you in their mind. They're not thinking about you. When they're devaluing you, when they're criticizing you, minimizing you, gaslighting you, projecting onto you, all those things that they're doing, they're not thinking about who you are as a person. They're not thinking about your qualities, your attributes, your characteristics, your personal history with them. Those are not the things that come into their mind when they think about you. They're thinking about a character that represents you. They're thinking about a role that they've relegated you to. And it's really important for you to understand that, because as long as you are stuck in this mode of thinking that there's a misunderstanding, that they've misread you, that you just need to communicate more effectively to them, or you need to change your approach, your strategy, you need to say it in a precise way in order to help them understand who you really are. As long as you're stuck in that mode of thinking, then you're going to be stuck in that trauma bond. You're going to be stuck in that abuse cycle, because it's critical for you to understand that a narcissist is delusional. And in order for them to maintain their fantasy world, where they're always going to be the hero, the victim, or the martyr, they have to relegate you to a role that supports that delusional narrative of who they are. And it's for that reason that no matter what you try to do in that relationship to create win-win, to create some sort of understanding, to have reciprocity, and to have a healthy, mature, functional relationship, all of those efforts are in vain, because a narcissist doesn't interact with you. They don't see you. They don't think about you as a person. They have to maintain this image of superiority. They have to feel like they're in control, that they're superior. And the only way that they can do that is if they make you inferior. And to do that, they have to relegate you to a role. They relegate you to a character in their mind, and then they treat you accordingly. And it's not until you understand that this is not personal, this is a delusional state that this person is wrestling with, and that there's nothing you can do to change that or to help them or to save them. And that's the only way that you're going to see clearly enough to get out of that trauma bond.
That is absolutely incredible. Yep. Okay, good. That was the end of it. Absolutely incredible. Now, what's interesting, I mean, God, it's just so accurate. What's interesting is to see the mechanism used where someone who, let's just for the sake of the example from the video, is a narcissist. The weapon that they use to make the other person the villain or to denigrate them or whatever is to accuse that person of being a narcissist. And then it's like, I'm rubber and you're glue. Whatever you say bounces off me and sticks to you. Because honestly, you can use that mechanism, meaning you can use anything to carry out that mechanism, to denigrate someone, to vilify them, to treat them as something other than an actual person. It's interesting when the mechanism used is trying to label someone a narcissist, to use that weaponized language. Okay, the next thing I want to briefly discuss is the Dunning-Kruger effect, where, and I'm going to carelessly sum this up as, you have only enough knowledge to become dangerous, right? Like a little knowledge can be dangerous because you overestimate what you know. In other words, you don't know what you don't know. And I guess I'll just read this. The Dunning-Kruger effect is a cognitive bias that occurs when people overestimate their abilities or knowledge in a particular area. It's named after Cornell psychologists David Dunning and Justin Kruger, who first described it in 1999. And it says, explanation: people with limited knowledge or competence in a given area may not be aware of their deficiencies. They may assume they are competent because they don't know how much they don't know. This can lead to people with little expertise assuming they have superior expertise. It gives two examples. A person who's learned a few words of Spanish may overestimate their ability to speak the language. Someone who has never taken a law class may be confident they could pass the bar exam after 6 months of preparation. It gives two related effects. It says the Dunning-Kruger effect can also lead people who excel in a given area underestimating their abilities. For example, someone who is good at a task may think it's simple for everyone. And similar sayings are, a little knowledge is a dangerous thing, and ignorance more frequently begets confidence than does knowledge. I love that last one. Ignorance more frequently begets confidence than does knowledge. Okay, so when you have narcissism, the mechanism of then essentially vilifying others, especially when you're doing it with the weaponized language of narcissism, and then you have where I think the Dunning-Kruger effect comes in, is someone has enough knowledge about mental health and mental illness to be dangerous, but not enough to actually know their own deficiencies. And that brings us to the third and final portion of this evening's video, which is that 5 months ago, I made a decision after some things that had happened in the ex-Scientology community, which I refer to as my community. Now, it's interesting because when I refer to this community as my community, what that means to me is that it's a community I'm a part of, and therefore it is my community. And it always gets turned around that I'm using that word because I think the community belongs to me, or I run the community, or I own the community. But that's the thing, is that when someone is just trying to constantly degrade and vilify and make less of someone, they don't actually care what a person said or what a person means or what the most charitable interpretation is of what a person said or meant. It's always the worst, the worst, the worst, the worst, the worst, the worst. Okay. So there was a phenomenon happening in the ex-Scientology community where way too many people seem to be spending way too much time putting out content attacking ex-Scientologists, instead of what I think is a better use of time, just my personal opinion, which is exposing the horrifically abusive policies and practices of Scientology and getting the word out as far and wide as possible that Scientology is a multi-billion-dollar international family-destroying human trafficking cult. Now, because I tend to get blamed for anything bad that's going on in the community, it doesn't bother me when that happens because I don't care about that. But because I was already getting blamed for it anyway from various quarters, I said, you know what? Let me just put out a video saying, hey guys, I know I'm not the leader of anything, but I'm just going to put out the message that I'm no longer going to use my channel, my platform, to promote and platform any creators in this space that are specializing in attacking ex-Scientologists. It just seemed to be the right thing to do at the time. I stand by that decision. It's a position I'm going to continue to hold. Trying to reduce the negativity from the people who were, the one person in particular, the greatest source of the negativity, resulted in what has now been a nonstop 5-month daily harassment campaign from the source of that negativity. And I'm going to share with you a video that was created by another, and I've created my own version of it. I want to demonstrate for you. I want to put on display what the result has been for the past 5 months of me saying, hey guys, it sure would be cool if we could spend a little bit less time attacking each other and a little bit more time focusing on Scientology. Without any further ado, I present to you the final portion of this afternoon's video. I apologize in advance.
More diabolical than just a regular narcissist. He's a narcissistic piece of shit that doesn't care about anyone but with his narcissism. And fucking kick his ass to the curb where it belongs. Stop supporting narcissistic abuse. This is Narcissism 101. Narcissism 101. This is the effect that constant narcissistic abuse, nonstop narcissistic abuse by a narcissistic, it's narcissistic abuse. Now that shit, fuck that patriarchal, fucking narcissistic, abusive, enabling bullshit right up the ass with a fucking chainsaw, okay? A grade A, prime narcissist, I still stand with you because he's a narcissistic piece of shit and narcissistic abuse 101. Prime, grade A choice, narcissism to the narcissist. That is narcissism. It's fascism. It's fucking bullshit. Narcissism, 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 narcissism. I'm going to give you a recommendation here publicly. I want you to do exactly what I did when I finally severed all ties with this despicable human being. Study up on narcissistic abuse by a narcissist. All of it is narcissistic abuse. He's a fucking narcissistic abusing coward under his narcissistic abuse from this subhuman narcissist piece of shit. You can jump off a bridge or blow your brains out. That'd be stupid, but you could do it. Okay? But like literally, please stop supporting narcissistic abuse of women. And narcissistic abuse is to cover up his narcissism. Of course, he's not a monster then. He's not a predator. He's not a narcissistic abuser. From being a narcissistic abuser. Tired of Nora diagnosing people. I haven't diagnosed anyone. I'm pointing out the reality of his behavior is narcissistic abuse. If you haven't done any research on narcissistic abuse and you don't know what the definition of that is, let's look it up. Narcissistic abuse can have long-term effects on a narcissistic abuser. If I'm a narcissistic abuser, I encourage her to do some research on narcissistic abuse, and stop supporting a narcissistic abuser. Narcissistic abuser. That's all. I don't want to just do this and that. Just stop supporting a narcissistic abuser. Also, I've evolved post getting therapy and my nervous system reset. And then I was able to recognize the narcissistic abuse. Let me get off the narcissistic train for a bit. Okay. Also, this is what I have to say to you, Artex. This has been a narcissistic party. They're planning more narcissistic parties. Okay. Narcissistic. I want her to stop supporting a narcissistic abuser. She's narcissistic abuse. A narcissistic abuser. A narcissistic minus narcissistic abusers. That's what narcissists do. That's what narcissists do. Is that what narcissists do? Narcissistically abused you. He's a narcissist, a product of narcissistic abuse cycle. Narcissistic abuse is narcissistic abusing piece of shit. Narcissistic. There's still narcissistic abusers on that fucking board. For narcissistic abuse to be the continuing legacy because he's a narcissistic abuser, which is a narcissistic abusing, homophobic, xenophobic piece of shit. The narcissistic abuser. Narcissistic abuse. Your manipulation, your narcissistic abuse is not welcome here. It was stolen by a narcissist. I too was still under the narcissistic abuse thumb. Something from the narcissist after giving so much. I want no more narcissistic abuse to be endorsed. We're done with narcissistic abuse. Who are narcissistically abusing us. Discussing narcissism should almost be labeled criminal. That narcissistic abuse is alive and well by continuing to support a narcissistic chronic, the fact that he's a trash human being who's a narcissistic abuser of women is a narcissist. And you start telling them about the narcissist. He was a typical narcissist. They're incapable of loving him, is a narcissistic abuser. In accountability, because you're a narcissist, are you going to keep propping this fucking guy up, this narcissistic abuser, or what? I don't support narcissistic abuse of women. I don't think this is about a side. This is about literally saying out loud publicly, I don't support narcissistic abuse of women, which should be an easy statement for anyone to say. No, it's not illegal to be a narcissistic abuser. No, call yourself out all day and all night and keep supporting a narcissistic abuser of women. Do you support narcissistic abusers of women? Their narcissistic abuse at the hands of this man for years, okay, is a narcissistic abuser of women. And the narcissistic abuse has a narcissistic abuser is a cyclical action. Okay, we went over that. For those of you who don't know the definition of narcissistic abuse, it's right here. I still have the tab up. Narcissistic abuse of narcissistic abuse. You stand with narcissistic. I'm saying that this behavior is narcissistic. I cannot diagnose anyone with anything. I'm not a therapist, a psychiatrist, psychologist, nothing. None of that. I finished high school, guys. That's it. Okay. However, this pattern of behavior is narcissistic abuse. And people could decide at that moment, which they did with their subscriptions, 2,000 people unsubscribed from me immediately with narcissistic abuse. Your tolerance for narcissistic abuse of women is very high and chronic problem of narcissistically abusing women. So you support narcissistic abuse of women? Is that what you're saying? You're a supporter of narcissistic abuse. All right, awesome. Narcissistic fascist cult. Do you stand and support narcissistic abusers? Narcissistic and narcissist. Narcissistically, only to a narcissist is that a threat. Right? Right? To a narcissist. A narcissist, I would have more respect if he just told me that I was a cunt bitch and just keep my name out of, keep his name out of my filthy whore mouth. I'd have more respect for him if he said that. But that's not what he said, because he's a narcissistic abuser. Narcissists don't. Narcissistic abuser, narcissist. You can quote me. Narcissistically, systemically abuse women over and over and over, systemically abused. Blah, blah, blah. I'm going to thanks Slender for Good for propping up a narcissistic abuser of women. Thanks for a narcissistic abuser to a narcissist. To a narcissists don't. Okay, they are victims of a narcissistic abuser. So let's knock off that people narcissist is just a fucking grade A textbook, prime choice meat narcissist, narcissistic fat, and you yourself are committing narcissistic abuse in real life. Be on the alert for a narcissistic predator. The whole narcissistic cycle. Okay, his narcissistic charms and love bombing for being a narcissistic abuser, narcissistic pig, narcissist. And when you're holding a criminal, narcissist, whatever, accountable, suffered at narcissistic abuse, just started their recovery journey from narcissistic abuse. Or narcissistic is narcissism because he cannot be perceived as a narcissist abusing pig. The narcissistic control circle of narcissistic hats, ignoring someone, narcissistically controlling you. That is narcissism, narcissistic control. And I still stand by that. And I think anybody that spends all this time defending a narcissistic sociopath is wasting their time and being narcissistically controlled. The number one thing narcissists can't ever, he thinks I'm a narcissist because I want to apologize for calling her narcissistic abuse by this man. I don't stand with narcissistic. Narcissistic is a narcissistic abuser, prolific narcissistic abuser, chronic, prolific narcissistic abuser of women. Narcissistic abuse, narcissism. Look by a narcissist. Narcissistic abuse. Narcissist. I'm a gaslighting narcissistic abuser. No, you don't miss him. He's a narcissist. He's tricked you with narcissism. Narcissist piece of shit. The rest of us who know what gaslighting and narcissism looks like in real time, and then his head got way too big. And the narcissism took over. Narcissistically abused. Narcissistic gaslighting. Gaslighting, narcissistic gaslighting, lies. Gaslighting, narcissism. One of narcissistic gaslighting, abuse, narcissistic abuse, and narcissistic gaslighting, abuse, narcissism. You're narcissistic. You're a narcissist. Narcissistic superpowers. Narcissistic abusers or not. Narcissistic abusers. Gaslighting, narcissistic.
Okay. apparently I've been a piece of shit narcissist for the 30 years Nora has known me, but she only realized it when I said, it sure would be nice if you could not do 30 hours a week of videos attacking ex-Scientologists. Could we get back to Scientology? Because I'm getting a lot of the heat for your fucking nonsense. Thanks. And I had the audacity to put out that message without publicly calling her out and saying her name. Well, I apologize. I apologize. All right, guys, that's it. That ought to set some hair on fire. Let's see what happens. Much more to come later today, folks. Thanks for hanging out with me. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, if you want to see my rock and roll songs, click right on this guitar. And if you want to see a different one of my videos, then you could click right inside here. If you have subscribed or not, subscribe right here. Bye.